The interrogation chamber was designed to terrify. Its walls pulsed with a deep burgundy glow engineered to trigger stress responses in nearly every known sentient species. The temperature swung between burning heat and freezing cold every 40 seconds, creating a constant shock to the body. Beneath the metallic floor, hidden emitters released subsonic vibrations meant to cause nausea, dizziness, and confusion in prisoners trapped inside. General Vector of the Crimson Dominion had personally overseen the construction of this chamber years ago. He had watched legendary warriors, hardened assassins, and battle-tested commanders lose their composure within minutes of entering it. Some had screamed, some had begged, and some had simply collapsed in silence when the pressure finally overwhelmed their minds. The chamber had never failed before, yet the human sitting at the center of it was laughing. It was not nervous laughter, or the strained chuckle of someone trying to hide fear. It was genuine, uncontrolled amusement, the kind that came from someone hearing an unexpected joke. Marcus Webb leaned slightly back in the reinforced restraint chair, his wrists locked into glowing energy cuffs that held his arms firmly against the frame. The chair had been designed for creatures much larger than a human, but the restraints were more than strong enough to keep him from moving. The red light of the chamber reflected off his face while another temperature cycle rolled through the room, shifting rapidly from freezing cold to suffocating heat. Most species would have already begun shivering or sweating uncontrollably, their nervous systems struggling to adapt. Marcus barely seemed to notice. Instead, he glanced around the chamber as if he were examining a strange piece of architecture, rather than sitting in the Dominion's most feared interrogation room. General Vector stood several meters away, observing the prisoner with silent focus. The alien commander towered nearly 9 feet tall, his armored exoskeleton casting a dark silhouette under the crimson lighting. His elongated skull tilted slightly as he studied the human's reactions, searching for any hint of weakness or fear. Humans were still a relatively new species within the wider galactic community, and most Dominion analysts had labeled them primitive compared to older civilizations. Their technology lagged behind many established powers, and their military presence outside their home systems was still limited. Yet the reports Vector had reviewed described humans as unusually resilient and unpredictable in combat situations. Even so, nothing in those reports had prepared him for a captive who would sit calmly inside this chamber and laugh as if the entire situation were mildly entertaining. "You find this amusing," Vector finally said, his voice deep and resonant. As it passed through the chamber's translation system, the words echoed softly against the metallic walls while another low vibration pulsed through the floor. Marcus wiped a tear from the corner of his eye and exhaled slowly, still smiling. "I mean, yeah, a little," he replied casually. "Don't get me wrong. You guys clearly put a lot of effort into this place. The lighting, the temperature swings, the creepy floor vibrations. It's impressive. Honestly, if I were designing a torture room, I'd probably try something pretty similar." Vector's mandibles tightened slightly at the response. This chamber had reduced experienced warriors to broken shells of themselves, yet the human spoke about it like someone reviewing an interesting piece of engineering. The alien general took a slow step forward, his heavy armored limbs producing a faint metallic sound with each movement. The crimson glow reflected off the ridges of his exoskeleton as he studied the prisoner more closely. "This chamber has broken hundreds of prisoners," Vector said coldly. "Many far stronger than you." Marcus looked around again as another temperature shift passed through the room, a wave of freezing air quickly replaced by rising heat. He inhaled once, testing the air, and then shrugged slightly against the restraints. "Yeah, I can see how it would mess with people," he said. "Most species probably aren't used to this kind of sensory overload." His eyes moved back toward the towering alien general. But honestly, I've had worse mornings during Marine training. Vector remained completely still after hearing that. According to the Dominion's intelligence briefings, humans possessed a strong military culture on their homeworld. But the idea that their training could prepare someone for this environment seemed unlikely. The chamber had been engineered using centuries of psychological research across dozens of species. Every light pulse, every temperature shift, every vibration frequency had been carefully calculated to break a prisoner's mental stability over time. Yet the human's heart rate and breathing patterns remained steady. "You are aware of your situation," Vector said slowly. Marcus nodded, his expression relaxed. "Captured by aliens, locked in a scary interrogation room, and being stared down by what I'm guessing is a very important commander." He paused briefly before adding with a faint grin, "Yeah, I think I've got the general idea." The alien commander watched him in silence for several seconds. Arrogance from prisoners was nothing new. Many attempted to appear brave during the first few minutes of interrogation, hoping to intimidate their captors or hide their fear. But that act usually collapsed quickly once the chamber systems began affecting their nervous systems. The human, however, showed no signs of strain at all. Another pulse of subsonic vibrations rolled through the floor, designed to disrupt neural signals and increase anxiety levels. Marcus blinked once, then looked directly at the towering alien. "General again." "So," he said calmly, "how long does it usually take before people start crying in here?" For the first time since the interrogation began, General Vector felt a faint flicker of uncertainty. The human did not look afraid, confused, or even uncomfortable. If anything, he seemed curious about the chamber's effectiveness, and a moment later, Marcus Webb started laughing again. General Vector's mandibles clicked in irritation as he circled the chair with deliberate precision, each step producing a faint metallic clang against the chamber floor. He had faced countless prisoners before, warriors who wielded plasma, blades capable of slicing through reinforced hulls, diplomats who manipulated entire systems through deception, and even telepaths whose minds could unravel secrets before they were spoken. None of them had dared to laugh at him. None had mocked the carefully calibrated terror of the Crimson Dominion's interrogation chamber. Yet here sat Marcus Webb, a human of seemingly average build, whose amusement was neither forced nor fleeting. His laughter, light and casual, echoed off the walls with a tone that unsettled even the battle-hardened Vector. Vector's gaze swept over the glowing restraints, the reinforced walls, the subsonic vibration emitters, and the relentless temperature. Oscillations, all designed to crush even the strongest minds. Every detail had been crafted to exploit fear, induce stress, and expose weaknesses. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with a deep red light that fed off the emotions of those trapped within. And yet, despite the sensory onslaught, Marcus remained composed, almost serene. The human's calm defiance was a phenomenon the Dominion had never fully encountered. It was one thing to endure pain and discomfort. It was another to mock it, openly while restrained. Vector's instincts screamed that this human was an anomaly, a variable no algorithm could predict, and a threat far greater than his appearance suggested. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his hands bound in the glowing energy cuffs, eyes scanning the chamber as if inspecting a new piece of alien architecture rather than a lethal trap. "You've really thought of everything," he said, his voice casual, almost conversational. "I mean, the lights, the temperature swings, the floor vibrations. Pretty creative setup. You'd get a solid 9 out of 10 if I were grading this as a sensory experiment instead of an interrogation." Vector stopped mid-step, his towering form looming over the chair. His mandibles clicked again, faster this time, a signal of his rising agitation. No prisoner had ever dared to evaluate the chamber's design aloud. Most crumbled silently within minutes, their screams a testament to their helplessness. Yet Marcus's nonchalance bordered on the impossible. Even the Dominion's own intelligence units had underestimated human resilience. Many had written them off as primitive, fragile, and predictable. Yet Marcus shattered every expectation in one stroke of audacity. "You are aware of your position," Vector growled, his voice resonating through the chamber like the roar of an ancient beast. "Every element in this room has been designed to break your spirit. Resistance is meaningless." Marcus tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. "Yeah, I've read the brochure," he said, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "High-tech lights, subsonic floor pulses, rapid temperature changes. Sounds like a spa day for someone who enjoys extreme discomfort." His humor was disarming. Calculated or not, it forced Vector to reassess. This human's mind was functioning outside the parameters of Dominion prediction. It was rare, dangerous, and infuriating all at once. Vector activated a series of new protocols, unseen by Marcus, increasing the frequency of the vibrations, adjusting the temperature swings to more extreme levels, and altering the light pulses to a rapid, almost strobe-like rhythm. The chamber's full arsenal of sensory stressors had been unleashed, designed to erode both mind and body. But Marcus only raised a single brow, leaning back as if the changes were mere background noise. "Oh, that's new," he said lightly. "But you'll have to do better than that if you want to shake me." The alien general felt a rare and unsettling knot in his chest. No one had ever responded to the chamber like this. Not warriors, not spies, not even the so-called unstoppable mercenaries from other systems. Every tactic the Dominion had, perfected over centuries, had been countered with casual humor, mild curiosity, and unshakable confidence. It was as if Marcus Webb had entered a dimension where fear, pain, and intimidation simply did not exist. Vector's eyes narrowed. He had a reputation for being patient, methodical, and precise. But every instinct screamed that the human before him required more than conventional intimidation. This was no ordinary prisoner. This was a variable that could not be predicted, controlled, or contained. And if the Dominion failed to break him, the consequences for their control across multiple star systems could be catastrophic. Marcus, unaware of the calculations running behind Vector's armored gaze, tilted his head again and smiled. "So," he said, his tone deceptively calm, "how long do we usually play this game before someone cracks? 10 minutes? An hour? Or do you guys just keep adjusting the settings until the poor soul gives up?" Vector stood silently, realizing for the first time that the human's endurance was not just physical, it was psychological. Marcus Webb had already turned the interrogation chamber into a challenge, a mental puzzle for himself, and in doing so, he had shifted the balance of power in a way no Dominion commander had anticipated. The chamber hummed, red lights pulsing faster, subsonic vibrations intensifying, and the temperature swinging violently, yet Marcus remained seated, calm and defiant, his laughter now a steady undercurrent beneath the mechanical roar of the room. The Crimson Dominion had engineered fear into a precise weapon, but Marcus had weaponized indifference against it, and Vector felt the first stirrings of doubt in centuries of absolute certainty. The chamber seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the red lights now casting jagged shadows across the walls, shadows that twisted and stretched as if reflecting the unease gnawing at General Vector's mind. He had been trained to recognize resistance, to anticipate it, to exploit weaknesses in any sentient being. Yet Marcus Webb defied every expectation, remaining a calm, almost taunting presence in the heart of the Dominion's most feared interrogation facility. Vector's sensors had detected elevated stress in every other prisoner subjected to even a fraction of this treatment, but Marcus's physiological readings were anomalous. His heartbeat, respiration, and neural activity fluctuated, yes, but never in the patterns associated with fear or pain. He was unreadable, like a puzzle missing a critical piece, and it drove Vector into a rare state of frustration bordering on obsession. Vector circled once more, mandibles clicking like a file-latch, metronome set to an erratic rhythm. "You underestimate the Dominion," he said, his voice deep, resonant, and charged with authority that had shattered the wills of countless others. "This chamber has broken warriors who commanded fleets, spies who manipulated entire systems, and scholars who could bend minds with a single word. You are human. You are fragile. You will break." Marcus Webb's eyes followed every calculated step, his gaze sharp yet relaxed, like a chess master anticipating a move several turns in advance. "Fragile, huh?" he asked, leaning forward slightly, the faintest smirk playing across his face. "That's interesting, because all I feel right now is curious. Curious about why someone would spend centuries perfecting an interrogation chamber and then expect it to work on everyone the same way." His tone carried no arrogance, only a subtle, disarming confidence that made the very walls seem to echo his words. Vector activated the next phase, one that even he rarely used. The chamber's walls began to emit a low-frequency hum that vibrated directly into the nerves, a sound designed to induce vertigo, disorientation, and panic within minutes. The temperature shifted rapidly between extremes, scorching hot to freezing cold in cycles, each intended to erode resolve. The restraints tightened, applying pressure to nerve clusters in calculated intervals, designed to make movement painful yet bearable, forcing mental focus to fracture. Every element of the Dominion's design, every calculated variable, had been unleashed, yet Marcus did not flinch. He leaned back, his head tilted slightly, studying the walls, the lights, and the mechanisms with the detached curiosity of a Cotides tilted slightly, studying the walls, the lights, and the mechanisms with the detached curiosity of a deist. Scientist observing an experiment rather than a prisoner enduring torture. "You know," Marcus said, his voice calm above the mechanical roar, "I've read about people like you. People who believe fear is universal, that pain is the ultimate weapon, that intimidation can bend anyone to their will. You've built this place to prove it. But here's the thing. It doesn't work the same way on everyone. Some of us, we just don't play by your rules." His words, casual as they seemed, hit like calibrated strikes against the armor of Vector's confidence. The general had faced rebellion, mutiny, and treachery countless times, but this, the deliberate, unwavering defiance of a single human, was new, unsettling, and profoundly dangerous. Vector paused, weighing his next move. With meticulous precision, the sensors still indicated unusual stability in Marcus's brainwave patterns, suggesting a mind actively analyzing, adapting, and resisting rather than succumbing. Every instinct screamed that the human was preparing for something, a countermeasure the Dominion had not foreseen. And in that instant, Vector realized that Marcus Webb was not simply resisting. He was turning the chamber into a test of Vector himself, a subtle challenge that no previous prisoner had dared to present. The humans. Laughter, soft but persistent, echoed across the walls. It was not a cry of pain, nor a plea for mercy, nor even a mocking jeer. It was a sign of engagement, of mental fortitude, and of a spirit the Dominion had never encountered. Vector's jaw tightened as he considered the implications. If Marcus Webb could endure this, adapt to it, and manipulate it to his own psychological advantage, then the Dominion's control, its fear-based dominance, could be at risk. This was more than a prisoner. This was an anomaly, a threat, and potentially the spark that could ignite consequences far beyond this chamber. Marcus leaned forward again, his tone calm and deliberate, eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and quiet amusement. "So, General," he said, voice steady over the chamber's mechanical symphony, "how long do you usually give before someone breaks? 10 minutes? An hour? Or do you just keep turning the dials until your pride is satisfied?" His words, simple as they seemed, struck at the heart of the Dominion's methods, exposing a vulnerability Vector had never admitted to himself. Underestimating the unpredictability of human resolve, Vector's mandibles clicked sharply, faster this time, a sound betraying his inner agitation. He was trained to remain unshakable, to command, to intimidate. Yet the human before him, bound, vulnerable, and seemingly ordinary, had inverted the power structure. Marcus Webb, through calm defiance and measured humor, had begun to shift the balance in ways no protocol could predict. The chamber, the Dominion's ultimate tool of control, was now a stage for a mind that refused to bow. And Vector understood with a rare clarity that this battle was not merely physical, it was a confrontation of wills, and the outcome was uncertain. The chamber's hum intensified, now vibrating through the floor and walls. A relentless pressure designed to fracture concentration and force compliance. But Marcus Webb, instead of showing any sign of weakness, began to lean into it as though the assault of sound and temperature changes only sharpened his awareness. His mind raced, analyzing each oscillation, each pulse, and each mechanical nuance of the Dominion's torture device. Every pattern Vector thought he had perfected, every calculated effect, Marcus seemed to absorb and turn into data, a map of the chamber's inner workings forming in real time within his mind. It was unsettling to witness Vector had faced warriors, tacticians, and spies, all of whom had faltered under even a fraction of this design torment. Yet this human remained composed, almost detached. A singular force of unyielding mental fortitude. Vector moved closer, sensing that the situation had shifted. The chamber, once a symbol of absolute control, now felt like a proving ground, a psychological duel rather than a one-sided interrogation. "You think understanding my device will save you?" Vector hissed, his mandibles clicking faster, reverberating like a percussion of anger. "This is not a puzzle. This is obedience. And you will obey." Marcus did not flinch, did not react with fear. Instead, he studied Vector with a calm precision, as if the alien general were merely another variable in the experiment he had already begun to map. "Obedience isn't something you can demand," Marcus said, his voice steady over the roar of the chamber. "It's something people choose. And if your goal is fear, you'll find I don't respond to it. Fear is predictable, but I'm not." His words carried a quiet weight, a subtle challenge, and an unspoken promise that Vector had not anticipated. This human could endure, adapt, and resist far beyond normal expectations. Vector, for the first time in his long life, felt a flicker of uncertainty. He had always assumed that fear was the universal language, that pain and threat would reduce even the most steadfast beings to compliance. Yet Marcus's calm, his almost surgical dissection of the chamber's effects, undermined that assumption. Every flicker of doubt, every hesitation, even the faintest crack in Vector's confidence, could be exploited, and Marcus Webb seemed perfectly poised to do just that. The general activated the next sequence, a combination of sensory overload, designed to overwhelm cognition. Light shifted violently, colors alternating beyond normal perception. Sounds layered atop one another, creating a cacophony meant to shatter mental endurance. The restraints tightened in subtle, unpredictable intervals, applying precise pressure to nerve clusters meant to provoke involuntary reactions. Every variable the Dominion could manipulate was in play, a symphony of torment orchestrated to break the human mind. Yet Marcus remained steadfast. Instead of recoiling or panicking, he began to move subtly within his restraints, small, calculated shifts to relieve pressure points and counteract the disorientation. His breathing, though steady, adapted to the changing conditions, a rhythm that matched the fluctuations of the chamber almost instinctively. Vector's sensors confirmed it. The human's neural activity was not just stable, it was adaptive. Marcus was learning, evolving, and responding with an almost preternatural speed. "You're remarkable," Vector admitted, his voice low and measured, tinged with a rare trace of respect he would never have voiced aloud before. "Few beings endure even a fraction of this. And yet you thrive. Why? What drives you?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, smirk returning faintly. "I told you, General. I play by different rules. I don't break because breaking isn't an option I accept. You can push every lever, every button, twist every dial, and I'll keep adapting. Fear, pain, intimidation. They don't work on me because I don't allow them to. You see control as absolute, but the human mind, it's more flexible than you realize." Vector froze for a moment, the realization sinking in like a slow-burning fuse. This wasn't just endurance. Marcus Webb was demonstrating an ability to predict, counter, and even manipulate the very mechanisms Vector had believed were infallible. The general had assumed that the prisoner would eventually succumb, that every trial had an endpoint defined by biology and psychology. Yet here stood an anomaly, someone capable of turning the Dominion's ultimate weapon into a proving ground for his own mastery. The chamber's effects reached their peak. The combination of temperature swings, nerve pressure, and sensory overload, intended to crush resolve completely. And yet Marcus Webb did not collapse, did not cry out, did not break. He remained present, aware, analyzing, adapting. With every passing second, the balance of power subtly shifted. The prisoner was no longer merely defending himself. He was asserting control in a way that Vector could neither predict nor suppress. A flicker of alarm passed through Vector's multifaceted eyes, a rare and dangerous signal. Marcus Webb, a single human, had begun to dominate the very environment. Designed to crush him, turning a tool of terror into a stage for resilience and psychological ingenuity. The Dominion's perfect system was no longer perfect. And for the first time in centuries, Vector faced a question he had never encountered. Could control ever truly be absolute when confronted with a mind like this? The hum of the chamber now felt almost like a heartbeat, resonating through the floor and walls, a constant reminder of the Dominion's mechanical supremacy. But Marcus Webb had begun to transform that oppressive rhythm into something he could anticipate, something he could exploit. Every pulse, every vibration, every flicker of light became a cue, a signal he processed with sharp clarity. Where others might have flinched or panicked, Marcus moved with a quiet precision, subtly adjusting his posture, shifting his weight within the restraints, and using the chamber's energy against itself. The very mechanisms designed to break him were now tools he could read, almost like a complex puzzle revealing its own secrets under his scrutiny. Vector watched, his antennae twitching, mandibles clicking faster than usual, a sign of rising agitation. He had never faced a prisoner who could not only endure the chamber, but also seemingly learn it in real time. The human's ability to adapt was extraordinary, unnerving. He activated another layer of torment, a sudden burst of pressure and heat intended to disrupt Marcus's focus. But Marcus anticipated it, twisting his body in precise increments to offset the force, his eyes scanning every detail of the chamber's inner workings. It was as if he were mapping the device from within, turning its assault into a study in physics, engineering, and strategy. "You are extraordinary," Vector growled, his voice tinged with disbelief and frustration. "No one has ever resisted so completely. Tell me, human, how do you maintain such control?" Marcus tilted his head, a faint smirk playing at the corners of his lips despite the overwhelming conditions. "Control isn't something you give me," he said steadily. "It's something I take. I adapt, I observe, and I act. You designed this to predict reactions, to force compliance, but I don't react the way you expect. That's your flaw." His voice was calm, almost taunting, but it carried an undeniable certainty, a quiet power that unsettled Vector. The alien general's eyes narrowed. He ramped up the chamber's intensity, introducing chaotic light patterns and erratic sound bursts meant to shatter mental endurance completely. The temperature swings became more extreme, the restraints tightening unpredictably, attempting to destabilize Marcus physically and mentally. Yet Marcus did not falter. Instead, he began using the patterns to anticipate the next shift, subtly redirecting the energy, adjusting his position, and even predicting the next sequence of attacks. Each maneuver was precise, calculated, and entirely intentional, as if he were turning the chamber itself into an extension of his own will. Vector's frustration grew, a dangerous and unfamiliar sensation for a being used to total dominance. Marcus had crossed a threshold. He was no longer merely surviving. He was asserting influence over the environment, turning Vector's own tools into instruments of insight and control. The general could feel the shift, a subtle yet undeniable inversion of power that left him momentarily unsteady. "You should break," Vector snarled, his mandibles clattering. "Pain, fear, humiliation, it is universal. No being has ever endured what you endure and remained unbroken." Marcus's gaze held steady, unflinching, a quiet defiance burning in his eyes. "You designed your system to control minds," he said calmly, "but I'm not a mind you can control. You see me as a subject, a variable, someone to bend and break. I see you as a pattern, a set of rules, and I'm using them against you. Fear isn't universal. Control isn't absolute. And resistance is limitless." Vector recoiled. Slightly, a rare falter that spoke volumes. For the first time, the alien general realized he had underestimated humanity's resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. Marcus Webb was not simply enduring. He was shaping the battlefield on his terms, subtly dictating the flow of the confrontation. Every increase in intensity, every calculated assault, was met not with fear, but with strategy, insight, and an unyielding will that seemed to grow stronger with each challenge. The chamber's assault escalated to its maximum parameters. Lights strobing violently, temperatures swinging to extremes, and the sensory onslaught reaching a level meant to incapacitate any normal being. And yet Marcus remained, a singular force of mental and physical equilibrium, observing, adapting, and waiting. Vector realized the terrifying truth. He was no longer the master of this interaction. Marcus Webb, a single human, had become a variable he could not control, a presence that defied prediction, and a force capable of turning even the Dominion's ultimate weapon into a test of his own assumptions. The moment hung in the air like a taut wire, charged with tension. One miscalculation, one underestimation, and the balance could shatter completely. Marcus's endurance, intelligence, and adaptability had transformed the chamber from a place of torture into a crucible of strategy, and Vector felt the first seeds of doubt, a flicker of vulnerability that had never touched him before. The game had changed, and the next move would define who truly held power. The chamber's machinery groaned under the strain of its own design, lights flickering and conduits sparking as if protesting the relentless will of its newest occupant. Marcus Webb's body was bruised, sweat slicked across his skin, and yet his mind remained sharper than ever, analyzing, calculating, and anticipating each shift in the environment. The assault that once threatened to break him now served as a map, each vibration, hum, and pulse revealing the chamber's inner logic. He could almost hear the rhythm of the Dominion's technology, as if it had a heartbeat, and he intended to synchronize with it, bending its functions to his advantage. Vector's agitation had reached a fever pitch. He had witnessed humans endure physical punishment before, but Marcus's adaptability and strategic insight were unprecedented. Every increase in intensity, every new layer of sensory chaos was met with a calculated response. Marcus began subtly manipulating the restraints themselves, using tiny, almost imperceptible movements to exploit weak points in the harnesses. It was a quiet, methodical resistance, one that required patience, precision, and a profound understanding of mechanics. As each second passed, he gained control not by overpowering the chamber, but by integrating with it, transforming its attack patterns into a language he could read and predict. Vector's mandibles clicked sharply, antennae quivering with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed, his voice reverberating through the chamber. This human should be at his limit. Every pain, every fear, every protocol, he should be broken. And yet, he moves as if in command. Marcus spoke, his voice calm and resolute despite the chaos surrounding him. "Command isn't taken, Vector. It's understood. I've studied your systems, felt their patterns, and learned their weaknesses. You built this chamber to control, to dominate. But control only works against those who obey the rules blindly. I've learned the rules, and now I will write my own." With a sudden, deliberate motion, Marcus exploited a mechanical flaw he had discovered earlier. The restraint on his left arm shifted under his manipulation, causing a chain reaction that destabilized one of the chamber's energy conduits. Sparks flew, and a sudden surge of electricity jolted through the system, sending a shockwave of noise and light cascading across the room. Vector recoiled instinctively, unprepared for the human's intervention. The chamber's assault, which had once been relentless and precise, wavered for the first time, responding to Marcus's subtle influence. Marcus felt the shift, an exhilarating surge of momentum that confirmed his strategy was working. Each motion, each calculated adjustment, allowed him to seize more control over the chamber. What was once an instrument of torture had become an extension of his will. He began moving deliberately, synchronizing his movements with the pulses of energy, manipulating them, redirecting them, and using them to weaken the very mechanisms that sought to subdue him. Vector's anger now mingled with fear, a dangerous combination. You are not merely resisting," he snarled, his voice cracking under the strain. "You are reshaping it. How is this possible? No being should be able to bend the chamber to themselves." Marcus's eyes locked onto Vector, unwavering and filled with a quiet intensity. "You designed this to anticipate and control. But I am not a prediction. I am not a variable to be dominated. I adapt, I learn, I act. And now the chamber answers to me." He twisted his body with deliberate precision, and the mechanism shifted in ways that forced Vector to adjust instantly. Every reaction from the alien general was a response to Marcus's growing command, a silent acknowledgement that the balance of power had changed as the chamber's lights flickered, and its alarms wailed in chaotic patterns. Marcus felt a surge of clarity. He had crossed the threshold. He was no longer simply enduring. He was controlling. Every ounce of energy, every pulse of force, every vibration was now a tool in his hands. The Dominion's most feared device had become a chessboard, and Marcus was moving with the confidence of a grandmaster. Vector realized, with growing horror, that he was no longer the orchestrator of this confrontation. Marcus Webb, the human, had seized the initiative and would not relinquish it. The room quaked as energy conduits overloaded, sparks arcing across the walls, and alarms screaming a chaotic symphony. Marcus steadied himself, eyes sharp, muscles taut, and mind razor-focused. The chamber, once an instrument of his torment, was now a weapon under his command. and the next sequence of moves would determine whether Vector could recover or if he would be the first to fall prey to the ingenuity of the human who refused to yield. The chamber had become a storm of chaos, yet in the center of it, Marcus Webb moved with the precision of a conductor guiding a symphony. Sparks rained from the overloaded conduits, and the air hummed with volatile energy, but every tremor, every surge, and every flicker of light was now a part of his strategy rather than an obstacle. The restraints that once held him tight now acted like extensions of his own body, responding to subtle shifts in weight and leverage. Marcus had learned the rhythm of the Dominion's torture chamber, and with each passing moment, his control over it grew. Vector's disbelief had transformed into raw fury. He lunged, claws slashing, mandibles snapping, but Marcus was already anticipating the attack. Each of Vector's movements, honed for precision and intimidation, was countered effortlessly. Marcus twisted, shifted, and used the alien's own momentum against him, guiding Vector into the destabilized conduits. Sparks licked Vector's armor, forcing him to recoil, and Marcus seized the opening, stepping fully into command of the chamber. "This ends now, Vector," Marcus said, his voice steady but carrying the weight of authority that pierced the cacophony of alarms. "You designed this place to break me, to bend me into submission, but you underestimated one thing: human adaptability. I don't just survive, I turn your own power against you." Vector's antennae twitched, his movements erratic as the chamber itself betrayed his control. Marcus exploited the moment, manipulating the energy flows with precision, redirecting them toward Vector in controlled bursts. The alien screeched an alarm, trying to dodge, but each movement was anticipated, each reaction calculated. The predator had become prey, the hunter ensnared by the intelligence of the species he considered inferior. With a final, decisive maneuver, Marcus triggered the last failsafe he had uncovered earlier. The restraints retracted, the energy conduits realigned to serve him, and the chamber itself seemed to bend around his will. Vector was thrown off balance, scrambling to regain authority in a room that no longer obeyed him. Marcus stepped forward, eyes blazing with the intensity of someone who had endured the impossible and emerged victorious. "You thought fear would control me, pain would bend me, and the chamber would break me," Marcus said, his voice echoing through the metallic walls. "But I've learned your systems, your patterns, and your weaknesses. And now, you see, it is not I who am trapped, it is you." Vector froze, realizing that his dominance had been irrevocably stripped away. The chamber, once a testament to his power and ingenuity, was now a tool in the hands of the human he had sought to destroy. Every light, every alarm, every pulse of energy was under Marcus's command. The alien's rage turned to terror as he grasped the full scale of the reversal. Marcus Webb, battered but unbroken, stood at the center of the storm he had mastered. The human who should have been defeated had rewritten the rules of engagement entirely. In that moment, Dominion's arrogance, its assumption of superiority, crumbled under the weight of Marcus's ingenuity, adaptability, and unyielding will. The chamber no longer dictated the terms. Marcus did dot, and as Vector's gaze faltered, Marcus took the first step toward ending the confrontation, not with reckless force, but with the cold, calculated precision of someone who had turned the enemy's greatest weapon into his own instrument of victory. The final act was about to begin, and this time, Marcus Webb would not merely survive, he would dominate. The chamber shook violently as the power systems overloaded, the walls pulsing with an erratic crimson light that no longer intimidated but illuminated Marcus Webb's complete control. Sparks arced in jagged patterns, hissing as they met the reinforced floor, yet Marcus moved with calm precision, adjusting conduits and redirecting energy as if conducting an orchestra of chaos. Vector, the feared general of the Crimson Dominion, stumbled backward, claws scrabbling for a grip on a room that now obeyed its prisoner rather than its creator. The irony was not lost on Marcus. The greatest instrument of fear in the galaxy, designed to crush minds and bend wills, had become a cage for the alien himself, and he human, fragile, and defiant was the one holding the key. You underestimated. U.S., Marcus said, his voice steady, calm, almost conversational amid the storm of alarms and electrical surges. You assumed humans could be intimidated, broken, or predicted. But that's your flaw. We learn. We adapt. We survive, and when given the chance, we turn the tables entirely. He moved closer to Vector, who snapped, trying to strike, but every attack was anticipated, every movement countered. The alien's spines bristled with panic, the four eyes widening as realization dawned. The human in front of him was no longer a prisoner. He was the master of the chamber itself. Marcus extended a hand, and the energy conduits responded instantly, lashing toward Vector in controlled, non-lethal bursts, forcing him to kneel. "Look at you," Marcus continued, a grin spreading across his face. "The room you built to destroy others now bends to me. Every protocol, every fail-safe, every terrifying gimmick, it's all here for my use. And you're powerless in it." Vector's mandibles clicked in rage, but no sound of dominance left his body. The room no longer obeyed him. Every motion he attempted was anticipated, every reflex countered. Marcus had not only survived, he had neutralized the very essence of Vector's fear-inducing design. "This is your lesson." "Vector," Marcus said, his tone almost gentle, though the weight of command in his words pressed down like a physical force. "Power is meaningless if it's wielded without understanding. Fear only works if it is respected. But respect? Respect is earned through action, through ingenuity, through loyalty and courage. You sought to intimidate me, yet in doing so, you revealed the very weakness you claim others possess." The general's breathing quickened, antennae quivering. As Marcus continued, redirecting energy flows to isolate the alien from the chamber's controls completely. "And now," Marcus said, "you see what happens when someone refuses to be broken, when someone refuses to fear, when someone laughs in the face of death." Vector made a last desperate lunge, but Marcus sidestepped effortlessly, guiding the alien into a containment field that locked with a mechanical hiss. Every display, every control panel now fed information solely to Marcus, giving him complete authority over the chamber and its systems. He paused, letting Vector's defeated form absorb the truth. The human he had intended to intimidate had not just survived, he had conquered. Marcus stepped back, surveying the room that had once been his prison, but now was his domain. "Consider this a demonstration," he said softly, almost kindly, to the broken general. "Humans are unpredictable, unyielding, and when pushed, unstoppable. You've seen it firsthand. Never mistake our laughter, our resilience, or our ingenuity for weakness. It's the very thing that makes us dangerous in ways you can't even begin to calculate." Vector's spines quivered, the four eyes narrowing in a mixture of disbelief and respect. For the first time, he understood that humanity was not just another species to contain or fear. It was a force of nature, untamed, unbound, and capable of turning the galaxy itself inside out if underestimated. Marcus Webb, bruised but unbowed, released the final control of the chamber, letting the lights dim and systems stabilize. He faced Vector with a steady gaze and a calm, confident smile. "And that, General, is why you never underestimate a human." The room, once a crucible of fear, now stood silent, a monument to ingenuity and defiance. Marcus Webb walked out of the chamber, leaving a stunned General Vector behind, a lesson burned into his mind that he would never forget. Humanity laughed loudest when it was most dangerous, and the universe would never be the same. The distant hum of the human fleet resonated through the void, a symphony of steel and determination that Marcus Webb had longed to hear ever since he had been captured. As he emerged from the chamber, the corridors of the Crimson Dominion flagship felt strangely empty, almost hollow. The oppressive presence of the alien hierarchy replaced by a tense anticipation that seemed to cling to every wall. Marcus knew that outside these walls, the fleet was preparing for the final phase of their operation, a rescue mission that had been orchestrated with precision, ingenuity, and a deep understanding of the enemy. Every ship, every pilot, every tactical maneuver had been calculated to perfection, yet none of it would have mattered if he had succumbed to fear. But he hadn't. He had turned the tables, and now the universe itself was about to witness the consequences of that defiance. As he reached the docking bay, the doors parted to reveal the human fleet waiting like a crescent of silver light against the black void. Ships of every design and scale hovered in formation, each one bristling with weaponry, shields, and the unmistakable confidence of beings who refused to yield. The fleet's commander, Admiral Leora Kane, stood at the forefront, her uniform crisp, her posture unyielding, but her eyes betraying the mixture of relief and pride she felt at seeing Marcus emerge unscathed. Marcus stepped forward, each movement deliberate, commanding, a silent message to both friend and foe. Humanity had survived, and had survived because it refused to bend. The fleet's communications channel crackled to life, and Admiral Kane's voice rang clear, steady, and authoritative. "Marcus Webb, welcome back. We've been tracking your progress, and it's more than we could have hoped. The Dominion flagship is now under your control?" Marcus nodded, gesturing to the corridors behind him. "It is," he replied, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "The systems are secured. The general is contained. The chamber that was meant to break me now obeys me. Humanity is not only alive, we are in control." The fleet erupted in coordinated signals of acknowledgement and relief, a chorus of humanity's ingenuity and resilience broadcast into the void. Pilots saluted, engineers confirmed system readings, and tactical officers adjusted formations to accommodate the new advantage Marcus had given them. The human presence in the Dominion flagship was minimal but strategic. Marcus's intimate knowledge of the enemy systems allowed them to disable defenses and neutralize threats without unnecessary loss. Every step of this operation reinforced a single undeniable truth: the aliens had underestimated humans, and that miscalculation would define the next chapter of galactic history. Marcus walked the length of the docking bay, taking in the ships, the soldiers, the engineers, and the medics who moved with purpose, preparing to reclaim what the Dominion had attempted to take from them. Each human face he saw reflected courage, determination, and an unspoken understanding of the stakes. These were people who had faced the void and had refused to be cowed by it. People who had survived not because of brute force alone, but because of their ability to adapt, to learn, and to turn despair into strategy. Marcus's heart swelled not with pride alone, but with a profound sense of connection to every human who had dared to fight against impossible odds. Finally, he reached Admiral Kane. "The Dominion underestimated us," he said quietly, almost in reflection. "They thought fear could control us. They thought imprisonment could break us. But we are humans. We survive, we adapt, and when we act decisively. Today proves it." Kane placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze unwavering. And tomorrow," she said, "we ensure the galaxy knows it. Your actions, Marcus, will not just save lives, they will define how humanity is seen for generations to come. This is only the beginning." Marcus allowed himself a brief smile, feeling the weight of his ordeal begin to lift. The void beyond the docking bay shimmered with starlight, reflecting off the sleek hulls of the human fleet. For the first time since his capture, he felt truly free, not just from the Dominion, but from the fear that had once threatened to control him. Humanity had turned the tide, not with reckless courage, but with careful strategy, resilience, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest chambers, they could command a light dot as he boarded the lead ship. Ready to rejoin his people and reclaim the galaxy's narrative, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were architects of their destiny, masters of their fate, and a force the universe would never underestimate again. The vacuum of space stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of darkness punctuated by distant stars that seemed almost to flicker in anticipation of the coming battle. The human fleet, now augmented with Marcus Webb's hard-won advantage aboard. The Dominion flagship moved with a confidence that was impossible to ignore. Every ship followed precise vectors, their weapon systems online and calibrated to perfection, a testament to the countless hours of preparation and strategy that had gone into this moment. For the first time, humanity was not reacting. They were dictating the terms of engagement, and the galaxy was about to witness a display of calculated power that would be remembered for centuries. From the command deck of the flagship, Marcus looked out at the endless stretch of enemy vessels that had once seemed invincible. The Crimson Dominion fleet, thousands strong, now faced a human force that was agile, unpredictable, and strategically superior. Every ship in the human formation mirrored the precision of Marcus's commands, a symphony of tactical brilliance orchestrated across light years of void. Sensors picked up enemy maneuvers, anticipations of attack, and attempts at counteroffense, all of which were met with human ingenuity and adaptability. Each move, each calculated strike, weakened the Dominion's confidence and reinforced humanity's supremacy. Admiral Leora Kane's voice came through the intercom, steady and resolute. All units, this is the moment we've trained for. Execute Operation Reclamation. Focus on command centers and shield generators first. Neutralize the fleet's central coordination. Do not allow the enemy to regroup. Humanity depends on precision, not panic. Marcus's hand hovered over the tactical console, eyes scanning the readings. Engage, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of every life counting on their success. The fleet surged forward like a tide of silver, and steel weapons firing in unison, cutting through enemy lines with surgical precision. Explosions bloomed against the backdrop of stars, crimson fire against the black void, but never chaotic. Every strike was purposeful, every maneuver deliberate, a testament to the discipline and determination of humanity. Amid the chaos, Marcus coordinated with precision, directing boarding teams, disabling enemy systems from within, and ensuring that casualties were minimized. He had transformed from a lone prisoner to a master strategist, his knowledge of the Dominion's inner workings turning the tide in humanity's favor. As Dominion ships fell one by one, panic began to ripple through their ranks. They had underestimated the human spirit, its adaptability, and the unyielding determination of those who refused to bow to fear. The battle reached its apex as the lead Dominion command ship attempted a desperate retreat, seeking to escape the human encirclement. Marcus and Admiral Kane exchanged a glance that needed no words. All units, focus fire on the command vessel. No mercy, no hesitation, Marcus ordered. Human fire converged like a single unstoppable force, overwhelming the Dominion's defenses. Within moments, the command ship erupted in a controlled detonation, a bright blossom of destruction that signaled the collapse of the Dominion's central command. The remaining ships, leaderless and disoriented, surrendered or fled into the depths of the galaxy. Their era of oppression irrevocably ended. Silence followed the storm of war, a rare and profound quiet that hung over the victorious human fleet. Marcus stepped onto the observation deck. gazing out at the remnants of the Dominion's fleet drifting in the void. Humanity had won not through brute strength alone, but through courage, intellect, and the refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Kane placed a hand on his shoulder, and Marcus finally allowed himself to exhale, feeling the weight of victory settle over him. "We did it," she said softly. "The galaxy will remember today." Marcus nodded, eyes on the horizon, where starlight glimmered like a promise. "Not just remember," he said, voice firm and resolute. "They will fear what humanity is capable of, and they will respect that we are no longer merely survivors. We are architects of our destiny, guardians of our freedom, and a force that will define the cosmos for generations to come." Around them, the human fleet shifted formations, preparing to reclaim and rebuild, to spread humanity's influence across the galaxy with a resolve that no enemy could ever break Dot in that moment. Marcus Webb understood a truth that resonated. Far beyond the battlefield, fear could be overcome, oppression could be dismantled, and even in the darkest corners of the universe, the human spirit would always rise, undaunted, unbroken, and unstoppable. Humanity had not only survived the Crimson Dominion, they had conquered their destiny, and the galaxy would never be the same again.